We are here with Dr. Tony Martin's niece, who did an amazing cultural presentation. I'd like just to say a few words about your uncle, his significance, and the importance of this event here today.
Well, we are, as a family, really honoured that the High Commission thought it right to honour my uncle. He's obviously very important in the intellectual, academic, political, activist field, but for me, just as an uncle, he was incredibly important to me. We shared a strong interest in our family genealogy, and we used to work on the family tree together. So I've lost my comrade in that endeavour, but as Cecil Guttemore said, he is still here, and I definitely felt his presence here this evening.
And I am looking and feeling his energy here in you, because you really combined, the intellect, the literary scholarship, and also the performance aspect of him. So he is living in you, as we say.
I would think so. Being a Martin is a responsibility. I stand on many, many great shoulders, so I take it very seriously, and I'm trying to follow in my uncle's footsteps and those before him and leave something behind for those that come after me.
When she was 10 years old, her father sat her down and told her that he was dying. That he began to die at the very moment he was born. That every day his body became a little weaker. That he was both there and increasingly not there. And that he wasn't afraid because, yes, he was dying. Her mother was dying. She was dying. But the whole world was dying too.
Tony Martin, to me, is one of the thought leaders, mentor, role model, most important, because for a black man living in the UK, as you know, the problem we face today with the youth, a lack of role model. So if I could achieve probably just 1 ounce of his attainment, would be something remarkable.
Could you tell me what Tony meant to you? Had you met him, and what has his work and legacy meant to you, causing you to be here today?
No, well, I met him a few years ago when he gave a lecture. But I was so disappointed because I'm a diehard Garveyist. I still believe in the principles and the philosophy of Marcus Garvey. And because I do collect a lot of stuff on Garveyism, and I have just donated some a few years ago to the Garvey Museum in Kingston. And the curator always told me I should get in touch with Tony Martin because he's authoritarian on Garveyism.
So why are you here?
Well, I've got to be here, because one of the biggest disappointments I've had is I never got around when it came to question and answers. I had my hands up and I couldn't get through it because... So I had to give the younger generation who didn't know about Garvey their chance to get answers from Dr. Martin.
I think that Dr. Tony Martin has paid a tremendous service for Africans all over the world, and for those who really want to seek the truth around a whole range of matters that have to do with our history and that have to do with struggle of African people. I think that his relentless scholarship has made a mark that we will not be able to forget. I think that his courage in terms of being willing to speak the truth and then deal with the consequences of the truth will be a lesson for us all. I think that his whole manner and the way in which he conducted himself with integrity is something for us to learn from. I think that the way in which he has not simply talked about Pan-Africanism, but has exemplified Pan-Africanism in thought, word, and most importantly, deed. His legacy will be second to none. I mean, it will be among those that stand the test of time.
This world has lost a great advocate. I'm talking about the late, great Tony Martin.
Ansel invited me and said, look, we're doing this tribute. Would you come with something appropriate or write something new? I said, I'll write something new because I believe that the role of the bard in the village is to recount the life of the village and the events that happen. And Tony was a big part of the village of Trinidad and Tobago, if you like. And a local bard, namely me, was called upon to make some sort of celebratory musical tribute. And that's the reason, really, that why I'm here tonight. That I'm here to do that tribute that I was asked to do. And I'm very happy with it because I see that as my job, a kind of oral newspaper, which is what it always was. And so Alexander the Great sings Tony Martin, which is the title of the song.
Equality, with patience wearing thin, he hoped that the truth one day would win. This world has lost a great advocate. I'm talking about the late great Tony Martin.
Well, to me, what I take from this is his involvement with the black people of this universe, I should say, and the strategies and that he put in place to move us as a people on. And of course his link with Marcus Garvey, I can't forget that. My grandmother was the secretary of the Marcus Garvey Union in her village in Cochrane in Trinidad.
Tony Martin was a Garveyite like myself, meaning that he was a Pan-Africanist, and he was also my personal friend. I knew Tony about the late 1970s. Known Tony in Trinidad, in the US, and also in Britain. In the US, Tony Martin and Marcus Garvey Jr., who was my teacher at school in Jamaica, we worked together in Marcus Garvey's organization as Pan-Africanists in the 80s. So he was a brother who was a relentless researcher and activist in the cause of Pan-Africanism.
Tony Martin's very dear friend, Mr. Ansel Wong, invited me. I didn't know Tony personally, but based on Ansel's excellent recommendations of Tony and all of the stuff that they've done together and how they've helped to promote Trinidad and Tobago, I'm a huge advocate of that because that's what we in this room continue to try to do. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I will continue to promote anyone who does something like that in such a great way.
Well, I say that Tony Martin was a huge Caribbean and Pan-Africanist scholar in the ilk of Eric Williams, of course, and Stokely Carmichael and CLR James. Amazing that a small nation has produced such giants, and I'm proud that I could be associated with him as someone who's also been involved in black activism. He made a huge mark on the whole question of Marcus Garvey, and now learning about another black hero, and his passing is a real sad affair, a real sad thing.
Okay, you just did an amazing like what's called like eclectic presentation for Dr. Tony Martin. Just say a bit about who you are quickly and why are you here for him.
I was asked to perform here today and also to recognise not his achievements as a musician as well. So Ansel Wong did say it would be really important to have a panist, as Pan was part of that life as well. My name is Deborah Romain. They call me the Pan Diva. I'm of Trinidad heritage, born in the UK. I've been privileged to perform for the High Commission on several occasions, so it's lovely to be here again today.
My name is David Kalu from Culture Pulse magazine. I didn't know Tony until after his death. I learned about Tony when I was inquiring about Auntie K and realized that he was writing an autobiography on Auntie K. Having said that, not knowing Tony and hearing what he stood for tonight, it's just enlightened myself as a Trinidadian to know that we have people like that who had people like that who were working so tremendously to promote ourselves in the Caribbean. And it's such a shame that that is a dying breed today. We don't have that sort of intellectual people that's coming through. We have intellectual people that's coming through, but they're not fighting the cause that people like Tony Martin stood up for. And we need to see a bit more of that.
Tony got into trouble with some people who perhaps should be our friends, and he's the kind of person, or rather, he was in the kind of war in which people are defeated. The enemies he faced are part of the Jewish community, certainly the Zionist community, are very deadly if you cross them. And Tony crossed them, not in any unprincipled way. What he did was to use bits from a book that talked about the role of the Jewish intellect and the Jewish community in Atlantic enslavement. The perfectly legitimate topic for an African, but importantly, it's a legitimate topic for Jewish historians. So most of the material in that book actually came from Jewish academic sources. And what they in effect say is that we can talk about yourselves, but you are being at least uppity to talk about them if you happen not to be one of them. And that is the trouble that Tony got into. He's documented it. He didn't cave in, and many people have, and many who didn't cave in were defeated, and we know the names of some of them. But what more specifically was this business that Tony was legitimately speaking of? It is not just that Jewish capitalists or merchants or whatever owned slaves, enslaved Africans here and there. Not just that. He was onto the issue of the very important historical matter of how enslavement got taken into the region from which most of us in this room come, the Caribbean.
So, Dr. Professor Cecil, I so anoint you. You were privileged, to deliver the keynote tribute to Dr. Tony Martin here today at the High Commission. How would you sum up him, and how would you sum up the event here today?
Well, I think Tony was just a marvelous scholar, but he combined it with wonderful humility, a wonderful sense of our history and how to connect the various bits, a very clear sense of Marcus Garvey's importance, and he has, by his work, brought much more out of the reality of Marcus Garvey, much more about what the movement and what the man really were. And so I'm just in awe of his achievement, and I hope I communicated that today.
You did that excellently. And what's the significance of the event here, held and organized under the auspices and in the presence of the High Commissioner?
Well, I think it's good that his country of origin celebrates and recognizes this fine African Trinidadian who did so much in so many fields, and I think it matters that the embassy, the mission, acknowledges and sings the praises of the brother in the way that happens.
Okay, I would like to thank you very much for your presentation, and in the spiritual cycle of passing the baton, somebody already has signposted you as the next, formidable mind for the 21st century. And I know you're very humble, but I hope you take it and you embrace it and you run with it. Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
This world has lost a great advocate. I'm talking about the late, great Tony